established meet with Indoco Remedies management. On behalf of Indoco Remedies management, we have with us Ms. Aditi Panandikar, Managing Director, Mr. Sandeep Bambolkar, Joint Managing Director, and Mr. Vilas Nagre, President Corporate Affairs and Investor Relations. I would now request the Indoco management to open up with a brief commentary on the business as it stands, and then we can open it up for Q&A. Over to you, ma'am.
Yeah. So good morning. Thank you for that, Vishal. And
thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. So right, I'm really not sure how much participants are aware of the organization, but I'll do a very brief overview. Right. So we are into our 75th year of operations. The company was established in 47. It was registered in 1947. I'm the third generation in business. And regarding the operations of the company, we have about 60% of our top line, 55 to 60% of our top line coming from the Indian business, which is a branded generics driven, 99% ethically driven sales in India. For the remaining business, around 8 to 10% comes from APIs, and the remaining close to 42% from international formulations. The models are different for different businesses. India business, as I said, is a value-added branded generics business. International business in the regulated markets is largely into the generic space, where we have various business models again of pure contract manufacturers. We have a cost and profit sharing with front-end partners, and we also have our own filings. So the IP is then owned by Indoco, both in Europe as well as in US. Apart from that, we also have a neat business in the emerging markets, which is Asia and Africa, which is very much like the India business. It is a branded product business and not as much into tendering, etc. Regarding the organization, we are 6,000 employees, 2,300 people in the field as medical representatives or field sales officers. We have an R&D center in Navi Mumbai, which houses more than 250 scientists working at various stages, from development of non-infringing process for APIs to developing the APIs, manufacturing the APIs, doing the regulatory documentation required for filing, doing product development, formulation development, filing of ANDAs and CTD dossiers, and eventually even supporting all our manufacturing sites. We have 3 manufacturing plants in Goa, all of which have both all European as well as US FDA approvals. We have 3 manufacturing sites in Baddi, 2 of which are approved by European authorities. We have a site at Aurangabad, which is approved by many of the emerging markets. We have 3 API sites, active pharmaceuticals manufacturing sites. One is a kilo or small volume, high value manufacturing site based at Rabale. Another is a site for making key starting materials for our own use, also in Rabale, and a larger API manufacturing site at Patalganga near Panvel. This is the infrastructure setup. The company, I have been MD since 2012, and we had a good run, taking the company from 450 crore up to 1,000 crore in less than 5 years, which is doubling up. After that, the company had a bit of a setback in the international markets with the regulatory authorities, which we were the fastest, one of the fastest organizations to turn around. We also had certain concerns in the India business, especially after demonetization and GST, which have also got totally corrected now. So happy to share that for the year completed, we have shown a profit of over 90 crores. And at this stage at Indoco, we have all our businesses corrected and in high thrust mode growing forward. So that is a brief overview. I'm sure we can answer details in questions. The company has filed over over 65 product and process patents across the world. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your opening remarks. We will now open the floor for questions. I request the participants to ask a question. Please use the raise hand function, or you can come in directly and ask a question by introducing yourself and your company name.
So I'm going to go off video in the interest of bandwidth. Okay.
Sure, ma'am.
Yeah.
And we have first question from Mr. Ashish Thakkar, Motilal Oswal AMC. Please go ahead, sir.
Yeah, thanks and good morning. So, ma'am, I had this question on our Goa oral solids facility. How important or how critical it is in order to meet our 3 or say 4 year vision?
Yeah, thanks, Ashish. Goa Plant 1, I think you're talking about, is a very, very key site for us, has always been. It is our largest site for supply to Europe today. It also has small supplies happening to US for solid orals, and some products filed for approval in US. So in every way, it is an important site for us. Your question, I think, pertains to the warning letter which is hanging on that site, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So just to give you an update on that, we have completed all commitments to FDA regarding improvements, finished all our updates. FDA has also accepted that the site is, from expectation from their side, whatever had to be done has been already done. However, because of the lockdown, they have not been able to come down to inspect us so that the warning letter could be lifted. We have made several requests for audits also, which they are considering. Our last effort has been approaching them through a solicitor in US, which has also been done. So, but coming back to that, our Baddi plants have also got European approvals. And in fact, plant 1 at Goa is being spruced up to, and capacity there is being freed in order to supply more for US in the next few years. Coming to the US products, the warning letter has not stopped us from supply of products. So the warning letter is in no way going to impact our current sales or our sales for the next 3 to 4 years. The products which are filed from that site, the files which are not moving inside FDA because the warning letter is not lifted, are actually for products of the future for 2026 approvals and beyond.
Okay. So, ma'am, 2 days back, the US FDA did say that they will start inspections of facilities which are mission critical.
Correct.
So, and they said they will start somewhere in September. So, did we receive any sort of communication from them?
Every time we have checked with them, we've been getting change dates. So yes, our regulatory team has heard the same general statement back from them saying that they will start inspections in September, but nothing specific to our site yet.
Yeah. And madam, do you feel that, the Goa unit 1 that we are talking about, the site inspection, could they get triggered? So by a product filing, say, I guess Toprol is filed from this facility.
No,
so
no, it's not from that. It's not from that.
Okay. So, okay, this is helpful. Thanks. And ma'am, secondly, on the India business, obviously last 3-4 years, we struggled a lot. So there was a lot of MR attrition, and but has anything of that sort changed in the last 12 to 15 months? And do you feel we are in a much better position compared to the last 3 to 4 years as far as India business is concerned?
Yeah, Ashish, if you look at the last 15-18 months for India business, I think not just me, but anybody who is operating in India in the ethical space will tell you that the most unexpected kind of work conditions were created, right? So we all depend, as I said, 99% on prescription generation for creating demand for product. I mean, we all have product ranges which have an OTX element to it or a repeat purchase by patient, but our business really revolves around creating prescription. And in the first wave, there was complete shutdown. Doctors were also not practicing. Our people, we did not allow them to work because of safety for their lives. By the time the second wave came, Doctors were vaccinated and they started sitting in, but patients were still not visiting. Our people post-vaccination have actually started moving out. So it has been a very unnatural kind of a year. If you ask me, it was almost like getting an assessment center for us to know what happens to our products and brands when our boys don't remind doctors about the products. And happy to share that even in such a year, we degrew by only 8%, almost equivalent to the industry stagnancy or whatever. Yes, we have got a larger contribution coming from acute segments like anti-infectives and respiratory, which got really impacted in lockdown because people were at home, they were wearing masks all the time, nobody was eating out, nobody was going out. Naturally, the acute segment got impacted in a very big way. Happy to share that this year, as expected, once people have started venturing out of their homes, small infections have started, anti-infectives, respiratory segments are doing very well. In addition to that, in the second wave, by the time the second wave hit, the medical community has had a much better protocol and understanding of how COVID and infections allied to COVID are to be treated. So we have, for example, we have products which are used for prevention of COVID. We have products used for treatment of COVID. That basket did well even last year. But this year we are seeing all the other products also, which are used in treatment of secondary infections resulting from COVID, also doing very well. So yes, this year, after 1.5 years of an unnatural environment, India business is back and doing very well.
Okay. Ma'am, anything you would like to share on the stability of our field force? Because that remains a critical part. So no matter how good a portfolio we have.
Right.
But yeah, so anything you would like to share how that has changed versus pre-COVID levels?
Well, because since the boys could not move out in the field, and that is their forte for their job, actually there was this feeling that post-COVID lockdown, people will not move around as much as they do. But attrition continues to remain a case for most pharma. It has come down surely. For us, our attrition levels are not so bad in our main divisions or the acute divisions. Attrition levels for us are a bit of a concern in the smaller divisions where we are trying to still establish and grow our businesses, in particular the chronic and some of the subchronic areas. So yes, a lot has been done inside the organization also to see that people stay with us for longer. But it is an ongoing thing because the industry is highly fragmented. There are very large players, very small players. We have learned to live with attrition and still grow, right?
Yeah. Ma'am, do you feel these BPOs are a greater threat to these pharma industry as far as this MR's attrition is concerned?
BPOs have been a threat for a very long time. For example, you can ask everybody in the industry, the place where you have maximum attrition and inability to keep people is Chennai. And in particular, Chennai outskirts and Coimbatore. And everybody knows it's a big KPO center and lesser availability of good English speaking. So this thing goes on, so BPO, KPO has been around for some time. But I feel typically the industry itself came down from high growth levels of 20% and all to single digits in the last 4-5 years. Post-COVID, now there is a new resilience, there is a greater appreciation for healthcare, major investments from government. I feel overall going ahead, even if the number of FSOs don't go up, the quality of people across organizations will improve.
Okay, yeah, this is helpful. Thanks, ma'am.
Right.
A reminder to the participants, to ask a question, please use the raise hand function, or you can come in directly and ask a question by introducing yourself and your company name. As the question queue assembles, Vishal, would you like to?
Yeah, I'll take the question. Good morning, ma'am. So basically on India Pharma, could you kind of give us some color on how the COVID portfolio is moving now? So in second quarter of this financial year. Has that come down substantially, and it is primarily the base business that is moving for the company?
On mute. Yeah. Sorry, I was on mute. Right. So actually, the COVID portfolio did very, very well in when the second wave came. In particular, in the months of April and May, there was a bit of a lull in June, slight improvement in July, and I'm expecting even better a little bit in August. When I say COVID portfolio, it's a very broad portfolio. So we have products like Carval Plus, which are used for steam inhalation as part of prevention. We also have antibiotics like ATM. We have got a newly launched lozenge containing naringin, which is for, protection of the throat. Whenever there is, people have a sort of a sore throat and they're worried it might be COVID. So there is a large basket. It is difficult to say how the entire basket is doing or not. ATM in particular, which is an anti-infective, has a support also of seasons. So it is doing better, certainly. Coming to pure COVID, yes, it is Q2 is not as great as Q1, but it is the base business for us which is doing exceedingly well. Right. So we have, for example, other than COVID basket, we have got other antibiotics. We have the entire respiratory segment other than Carval Plus, our entire Febrex Plus range. We have got GI, which is led by Cyclopam, our largest brand. We have the entire stomatological range, which is 20% of our top line, desensitizing toothpaste. That is one segment which never had a high or a low, did not have a surge or a dip in COVID. It just continued as if, things are normal. That also gives us a lot of comfort on how well those brands are established.
Right. The respiratory segment had suffered last year. So has that kind of normalized now?
Yes, to a great extent.
Okay. And you would expect, so you had a very strong quarter so the first quarter was extremely strong. So would we expect the second quarter also to be maybe not as strong because we don't have the support of COVID, but it should be kind of mid to high teen growth in this quarter. Is that fair to expect?
Yeah, you can ask the questions. I will just say yes, no. We are a listed organization, but you get AWACS reviews, right? I think everybody in the industry.
Yeah. So the first month was good. I think July was good.
Yes, industry is doing well. Yeah, we are also doing all right. Good.
Okay. And any sense on how do you plan to roll out products in Indian pharma market? So which segment would see the most rollouts in terms of new launches?
Yeah. So, Vishal, we have got acute, subchronic and chronic, and we believe subchronic is our strength. This is particularly those specialties which we call them mass specialties, largely driven by pediatricians, ENTs, gynacs, ophthalmologists, dentists, and they have supported the company well. In a way, it de-risks you from the footfall-based, pure general practitioner kind of concentrated sort of a business. And it is, as they say, you have your strengths. So we are trying very hard to establish in the specialty, super specialty segments of cardiology, diabetology, but it is going to take some time. And it is the mass specialties where we are more concentrated and where you will see more launches happening this year.
Got it. Thanks. I'll get back into the queue. We have a question from Rajdeep Singh.
Yeah.
Hello. Hi. Good morning. Am I audible, Vishal?
Yeah, you are audible.
Ma'am, just in continuation to Vishal's question, just wanted your broader thoughts on the India portfolio. As you said, we have been there for the last 75 years, and India business is approximately, I think, 650-700 odd crores. So what differently are we doing in terms of product development and portfolio development so that we take it to a larger scale and grow maybe above the industry benchmark, not just by a few basis points, but by a meaningful percentage points?
Yeah.
And also, what is the strategy in terms of making fewer brands with larger size, or the vice versa, the large many brands with smaller size?
Right. Very interesting question. So, right, we have been in existence as an organization registered for 75 years. But our journey really started in 1963. So you have to give me those many years of leeway.
Sure.
Yeah, but yeah, interesting question. So we have 8 marketing divisions today, and they cover a broad category of doctor specialists. And we have done that because we believe that, there are many areas of potential where product development has to happen and which works for us. So there are, for example, you do have industry leaders. So you have Cipla with leadership in respiratory, the asthma segment, for example. You have got Torrent Sun Pharma with the CNS largely. And then the others in cardio like Ares. What happened for us really, because you talked of the size of our business for how many years we've been in business. It has largely got to do with the portfolio of products we have. Okay. So if you look at our ranking, for example, we are ranked 29th in retail audit, but 21st, 22nd in prescription audit. And this gap itself tells you. So I generate prescriptions equivalent or just marginally lower to maybe a Glenmark, but I do not get that kind of value in for the prescriptions I generate. That's because of the kind of product mix I've handled for the longest time. What we have done is, if you look at us over the last decade, then from being a 90% pure acute business, we have moved it to a 40% acute, 10%, 11% chronic, and the remaining subchronic. So our greatest achievement in the last decade has been development of the subchronic business, led by dental, gynac, ophthal, pediatric, ENT. And we believe that is where you can also, we call it subchronic, because many of the therapies treated actually need products to be used over a longer period of time. So going forward, I feel very confident that we will be able to grow the business. And, you might have heard this, that even Sun Pharma has tried very hard to play in the acute space. So you sometimes have your strengths and you have to build on them. While we have got our key brands or legacy products like Cyclopam, Febrix Plus, which are 100 crore brands now. There are a few dental. So when you said many small brands, I beg to differ. We do not want to build many small brands, but we are of the opinion that we should develop many mid-sized brands, and few of them shall go to the 100 crore level. That is definitely the thought process in Indo.
Fair. Ma'am, the question was more from the point of view that 650-700 crore size in the India portfolio and 3 brands with Febiplex, Cyclopam, and maybe Sensoform 100 crore plus. So the rest of the tail brands would be smaller.
No, it's not like that. The tail is, so we have good amount of brands between 20 and 50 crore.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And ma'am, your legacy product would have older molecules, and the newer development would be in the areas where newer molecules are being developed. So how is the acceptance among the doctors' fraternity in terms of writing prescription for you?
For the old products or the new products?
Both. Maybe you can comment on both.
Yeah. So as somebody has said, the product never really becomes old. It becomes old with a specialty, right? And geographically. So if you look at us, we get like 65% sales from West and South. So we are really under leveraged in the North, where the acute market is very big, which has got to do with our sales capabilities more than anything, where a lot of work has been done in the last few years. So I expect that will start showing returns soon. Coming back to specialty, yeah, if you take a product like Febrix Plus, it might be written by GPs, but not doing as well with the ENTs. So that is an area to be explored. If you look at Cyclopam, again, it might be doing well with GPs, but not with the consultant physician. So that is an area to be explored. But quite frankly, the biggest change that has happened in Indoco in the last 1 year is the way we have totally ramped up and changed the strategy and think cell in the India business. So we, for example, I created a new CMO position inside the organization. with a concentrated KRA of new introductions and making them successful. So I think it is less of which category, which product, and more of how it is to be done. So if there has been one area of weakness for us in the last 5 years in particular, is that while we were able to make a brand, a 3 crore brand in the first year, we have not been able to make it a 10 crore brand in the first year. So that is the next agenda. And to that extent, a lot of hard and soft changes made inside the organization. Yeah.
Oh, fair. This is helpful. And one last question from my end before I come back in the queue. Ma'am, on the profitability of the international business, whenever US comes back, how do you see the profitability? For that geography?
Right. So, like I said, we have various models of international business, right? So we have emerging, which is like India, the branded business, which has similar profitability as India business, really. We have the entire contract manufacturing to Europe, which, depending on which molecule it is and whether we are backward integrated in API or not, really fluctuates. But it is, in a manner, the lowest end of our margin business today in international. US is comparable to India, and wherever there is a profit share, even better. So definitely the profitability of international business will continue to go up, especially as US contribution to the whole business increases, A, and B, also as the entire European business, the very nature of it is being changed. So for example, if we might have participated in an AOK for Metformin 5 years ago, but we were neither, CTD holders nor owners of the file. We were just contract manufacturers. That is a very different margin business from, say, the AOK we are doing now, which is allopurinol, where not only are we the file holders, it is our dossier, which is in the front end. We also are now backward integrated in the API. So very different. So the entire nature of international business for profitability is here to change only for the better.
Is US profitable now?
Of course.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Vishal and Shreya. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. He represents ASK Investment Managers. A reminder to the participants, to ask a question, please use the raise hand function, or you can come in directly and ask a question by introducing yourself and your company name.
Hi, this is Ashish once again. Thanks for the opportunity. Ma'am, given the very strong current fiscal year, do we have any, or probably can you guys share some kind of EBITDA target that you are looking for, say by FY24? So what I'm trying to mean is that is 450-500 crore kind of an EBITDA doable for us?
By when?
By FY24?
Yeah, why not?
Okay. This helps. And ma'am, beginning FY23, since we'll be launching one of the Opthal product wherein the competition will be lower, for how long do you feel this market could remain a limited competition opportunity for us?
I'll just come in here.
Yeah, Sandeep.
Yeah. I think, Ashish, you were there in the analyst meet we conducted on 17th of
yes, sir.
August. And you had asked me the same question.
Yeah. So I actually know we did some channel checks. So actually, no, we were doing some.
Yeah.
I think he's just trying to see if I give a different answer.
Yeah, this question in the medical reps, going to the BPOs. Yeah. That was another question he had asked. I remember distinctly. But anyway, I'll repeat the answer. When we launch a product, we expect maybe 2 other players to be in the market at that time. And at least for 6 months, I think there should be 3 players, post which we could have 1 or 2 other players. That's what we are aiming at.
Okay. And how about some other launches for the Teva itself? Any other launches? How should these launches happen? Say in the next 24 months?
Yes, definitely. 2 of Teva's launches will happen after 14 months from today.
Okay.
And then after another 3 to 4 months, 1 or 2 more launches.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And Sandeep ji, since we are into this contract manufacturing agreement with Teva, do we want to explore this and take this one step ahead and probably do some more work for other MNC customers? Is that a possibility, or are you thinking on these lines?
Yeah, we are already into talks and signed some very interesting projects with some other companies. We haven't given out the name, but with another company who specializes in injectables,
Yeah.
we have
Sandeep,
signed
right.
quite
Sandeep, but
a
I
big,
think, but Ashish should know this, that what we did with Teva, when the first signing happened, it was when we were extremely small and just, putting a foot into US. And because Ophthal is such a small space that when it gets genericized, it might become smaller. And therefore, it was very important to have a very large player in US as a front-end partner, okay? So that was done by strategy and design. Now what Sandeep says, the partnerships now are product to product basis.
correct.
We are not signing out a portfolio to a customer or a partner, right? Okay.
And so that's where I was that one injectable project we have signed with, neither we have given out the name of the injectable so far, nor of the partner because of confidentiality. And it's very attractive project. So that should be filed sometime next year in 23 by around May or June.
Ashish, this is going to be an ongoing kind of a business model for the company.
Correct.
But I agree with Sandeep that, product to product disclosures are not going to be done now.
Yeah.
In larger interest of the partners and for confidentiality.
Yeah, I understand that. But just to get this thing forward, you said next fiscal, this product will get filed.
Yes.
And next this is for the US market.
US, of course.
Okay, this is very helpful. Yeah, thank you so much. This is very helpful. Thanks, Sandeep ji. Thanks, madam.
Thank you.
Hi, may I come in?
Yeah, please.
Hi, good morning, Aditi ji. Good morning, Sandeep ji. Just two questions. Anything on the logistics cost? We are picking up that the freight rates over the last 1 week have gone ballistic from China to India. So any impact that you think could happen?
Well, our partners understand our situation.
Okay.
And we are sharing all the costs with them very transparently, so we don't have a problem there.
Right, and you had mentioned, Sandeep ji, that all your contracts are ex-freight cost, if I remember right, last time. And so that still holds irrespective of...
Yes. Yeah. Very much, yeah.
And secondly, on the Patalganga expansion, is that
Yeah, I'll just come in on that.
Yeah.
On the existing plant where we are already having a plant going on, we are proposing to invest about 40 crores. That expansion will start post monsoon sometime in October end or November this year, and it's part of the guided capex for the year.
Yeah. And when should that complete?
I think about 8 to 10 months it should be over.
Okay, so probably mid FY23.
Correct.
Got it. And just the last thing is, while CRO is a very, very small part, but any thoughts or any management bandwidth to look at that to make it a big piece? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think.
Go ahead, Sandeep.
Yeah, this had also come up last week, when we met some of the people.
I'm not repeating, sorry.
No. You're not. It's an interesting question and it's a very interesting business. So depending on the scalability, we will take it forward. Currently, the business is doing very well. Indoco has benefited very largely because of this CRO. All our first two files in US, whatever we have done so far, have come from that. Because the time slots and the availability has been tightly under our control. And plus, we are doing business with outside companies.
Right.
So I think you are aiming at the expansion, which we may consider in time to come.
Currently, we manage it really like an excellently managed boutique size CRO. It around 50 to 60% of the capacity for the next couple of years we will be using internally. and the rest will be, we will do work for others. And that is a site which has consistently delivered on all regulatory sides also. Yeah.
Right. No, I'm just thinking because, we heard about the Strides company doing very well and DVK is doing very well and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So, but
yeah.
obviously it boils down to your bandwidth and top
Correct. No,
management.
I mean, see, we have basically 3 studies can be done parallelly in that center. So which is very well designed, from 16 beds and then 48 and 20. So all kinds of, it's small size business which we acquired from Nicholas, but we have done well and ramped it from a capability angle. We have not ramped it up from a size business yet, but certainly going forward, it is an area we can look at.
My last question, Aditi ma'am, your project on this whole the North Belt of Bihar and UP, how is that coming along? Is it to your satisfaction?
Difficult. As I said, it's a difficult terrain for people like us. Because but once you get into it and focus upon it, which we are doing now, it will take some time. I'm confident in another year or two we will be on a firm ground. Pharma business, branded business, short-term successes don't really tell you whether really you have corrected issues, because it's very easy to book primaries.
Yeah.
When a guy leaves you, that'll all come back and sit on your head and create further complications. So that's not how we are doing it. We are really working at the grassroots. And I'm pretty confident in a couple of years, we will be able to turn it around. Bihar, in fact, is turning around faster than UP.
I'll get back in the queue.
Thanks. Yeah.
Reminder to the participants, to ask a question, please use the raise hand function or come in directly and ask a question by introducing yourself and your company name. Vishal sir, do you have any more questions?
Yeah. Ma'am, just want to understand on when can we become debt free? So basically both we can knock off both short term and long term debt completely.
Vishal?
Yes.
Yeah. Our working capital debt has come down significantly. I was just reviewing yesterday. It's come down to below 110 crores from where we were at 125, 130. And of course, it will depend on the business. The moment business picks up, it may go up again by 5-10 crores. That's not the question. And the long-term debt, currently, at least, we don't have any plans to increase long-term debt. It's around 120 crore. And a large part of the debt is being retired in September this year. The two big foreign currency loans which we had taken are coming to an end, are being totally repaid. One was for the acquisition of the Micro Labs plant in Baddi, what we call today as Baddi 3. And second was when we invested 100 crores in Patalganga. So one was a dollar loan and one was a pound loan, and both were around average cost to company was 5.75 to 5.85%. So today, if you take a look, largely, the interest rates have gone below that. So anything which we negotiate upfront will be much better compared to what we negotiated 3 or 4 years ago. Besides, ICRA has again reinstated both our ratings, A1 plus for the short term, and for the long term, I think we are AA. The best we can get for our size. So that's where we are right now. Going ahead, you asked about. The idea is if business needs money, we will certainly borrow.
Yeah, I was on mute, sorry. So question is, by when can you? I think on paper, certainly in couple of 3 years, why not? But question is, will you? That's something we will have to look at.
Because I think the street will appreciate more that if you need the money, you borrow the money at 4.5% or whatever, and turn it around to a return of 18-20%, then that 4% looks quite negligible. Rather than, pop out our heads and keep talking that we are debt free and not expand. So that's where our thought process lies.
And the effective interest rate should be around, say, 5% for both short term and long term.
Yes.
Okay.
Depending on what the RBI governor does, of course.
So the message is basically you'll kind of continue to have similar debt levels and rather reinvest incremental cash flows into new capex.
Absolutely. After 2 years, we have promised the markets that we will not have more than 80 crore of capex.
Right.
This year and next year, so we'll stick to that largely.
Sir, I just if you can add some color around the capex, because 30 to 40 crores is the maintenance capex, and the incremental 40 crores would go towards.
Like I said, Patalganga we are expanding again, and it's all the way for the better. The capacity will go up quite a lot. So wherever useful to the business, we will do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And sir, compliance is something which is critical to your growth in the US. So anything, so assuming the US FDA comes to your Unit 2 plant, are you kind of doing some routine exercises to ensure that these compliance issues, because my sense is as you keep increasing your capacity utilization, the potential of compliance issues, this is what we have seen. So as capacity utilization goes up, compliance issues probability also goes up. So any sense you can give on how you are trying to ensure the compliance is maintained?
Yeah, Vishal. When we got into our regulatory hassles, to correct it, we underwent a major restructuring inside the company, right? So soft and hard. So we created a CTO position, Chief Technical Officer. Under her, we created an entire wing of compliance as a cell. So if we have, which was a new formed function. And the very nature of this compliance cell is that it continuously audits all our sites and all our functions, right? So the sites are continuously being audited by a compliance function, which is more stringent than any regulator.
Got it, ma'am.
In addition to that, in our entire remediation exercise, when we worked with these Quantic, for example, the learning that we got through that, there is being a kind of a overarching plan to take the learning from any one side to all the others. So corporate quality also works very hard for that. So a lot of work being done at corporate QA level, compliance as a function, and at all sites for keeping them on their toes. So I agree with you, as volume of business increases, there is always a chance of issues happening. What we found interestingly, as we worked closer and closer with the regulators to sort of correct issues at our sites, especially the kind of the DI issues they were concerned about, was that eventually the regulators are happier knowing you have a kind of a structure in place to catch the issues before they happen or identify the issues as they happen. They don't have a problem with the issues happening. The issues are more, they have a greater problem if you do not have an internal system to identify, correct, catch, and sort of work to get those issues corrected, which is the greatest learning for us. And all those practices are in place in all our sites now.
Right. And madam, any comments with respect to the automation you would have on your plans versus the industry standards?
Yeah, so on recommendation of our remediation partner and the FDA, our sites have some of our sites we have already installed, and other sites is under installation is automated softwares like TrackWise, which will, and it's very useful now during the e-audits, where the auditor can just open a software and everything is there for him or her to see. And as a build up to TrackWise also, we had already started, sort of sorting information. So data and data crunching and trending of data to sort of give you indications of, a hotspot inside a site. All that kind of work is going on in the background. So you are anticipating your issues before they happen.
Got it, ma'am. So is the US FDA planning to visit? So I know they are not visiting plants, so they are not even visiting your Unit 1 facility, which is due for. But is there a pre-approval inspection that they can come for your on your Unit 2 side, the sterile side, basically?
So yeah, Unit 2, no, we have 3 lines, and we have 2-3 kinds of products. So we have simple, clear, sterile products. We have injections. We have ophthalmics, of course. We have thick suspensions. We have difficult products. We have aseptic sterilized. We have end sterilization. So all kinds. And what we have seen is that they, at one point in that correction, they had asked us for a grid line wise of the kind of product. So I believe they will come down each time there is a new kind of product taken on a new line. As of now, we do not expect they will come down for any pass, especially as in prior approval inspection, PAI, because nothing of that kind is waiting from plant 2 right now, right? So maybe plant 1 and 3, which are the solid sites, they could come down for a prior approval.
Okay. So like one of your oral solid, complex oral solid is awaiting approval from the US FDA.
Correct.
So would the US FDA inspect that facility to give an approval, or can that happen without a US FDA inspection?
I think it depends on many factors. It depends on how critical that product is, how critical it is for the authorities to come down and actually see the site where it is being done, and in light of the post-lockdown conditions when they can and cannot travel. So they will take an informed call, I feel, on that. It also depends on we are churning out a lot of data on that product, which is being submitted to them. So it also depends on how satisfied they are. But typically the product manufacturing process is so critical that I do believe they will come down.
Okay. But the submission of data is completed at your end, or it's still ongoing?
The CRs keep coming, and a small CR will be closed probably this month or next.
So it's a minor CRL that you have got?
Yeah, I should not comment on minor and major. It's a CRL which will be closed. Yeah.
Okay. So maybe another 6 months it will take for the US FDA to approve the product once you send the response to the CRL?
We can hope for that.
Okay. And just to come back, you had talked about some filings next year. So I missed your comment on what type of filings are these in the US?
I think Sandeep spoke, right, Sandeep?
Yeah. I'll just come in here.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, these are ophthalmic and injectable filings mainly. And there are some very interesting solid dosage products being worked on, XR, extended release, and those will be filed after 2 years from today.
Okay.
Yeah.
And sir, your broader strategy in terms of doing filing ANDAs in the US. So would you do any more plain vanilla ANDAs, or you would only stick to some of the like you have a core competency in doing suspensions on ophthalmic side? So whether this capability can also extend on the injectable side, and any other capabilities that you are looking to target in terms of your ANDA filings? Yeah,
I've said this before also in 1 or 2 meetings earlier, that Indoco has now reached a stage where we have graduated much higher than simple vanilla solids. So we will now focus highly on the extended release solids, on complex injectables, and suspension ophthalmics, which are all difficult to develop and tough to manufacture consistently.
Right.
That would be the mantra going forward.
Okay. And as I recall, you already have 3 or 4 suspensions which are pending approval in the US.
Yeah, either CRLs are being replied to or they are pending.
Okay. And sir, what would be the cumulative market opportunity of these suspension that are pending approval?
We'll give you that figure separately. Since you want only of the 3 or 4 suspensions,
Yes, sir.
but definitely they are in billions of dollars.
Okay. So there are such large suspension products there.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Around $600 million is the market size, Vishal.
Okay. Got it, sir. Thank you very much.
Nagre, we have to include 2 more. I'll give you the data later on. Yeah.
Okay. And finally, on the domestic piece, so just wanted to understand whether geography, geographic expansion would be the core part of getting growth in domestic, or would it be product launches? So I know it would be a mix, but your focus area is geography expansion, like focusing on Bihar and the northern belt. So
Vishal,
yeah.
Actually it is both, but geography is not expansion, it is return. Whatever has to be done by way of people on the ground, they are already there. They give me the poorest return per man. Okay. So from a fixed cost perspective, it is not going to cost us more to get more from this area. In fact, we need to get it now. Okay.
So focus is on execution.
Yeah, more on execution, more on control, more on better sales management. The entire, if anything happened in lockdown, the whole we now have better monitoring systems. Okay. Better reporting systems in the field, and on the ground, a lot of stress being done in these areas. If you look at our management structures in South and West, they are stronger per se because of the legacy. In the North, it has got to do with people capability, which is being corrected. And the second question is, yes, new introductions will play a key role for us in the growth, especially for leaps and bounds. So concentration will be on growing our legacy products and new introductions. It will be a bit of both.
So on legacy side, would you look to launch extensions or basic or kind of products that would meet the needs of the same doctors that you reach out?
True.
Okay, so you will also focus on launching extensions.
See,
like you have Cyclopam.
Right, because yeah, yes, why not? What the intention is that a doctor who is writing 3 of your products should write a 4th. Okay, so that is where you must work on the doctors who are already your core specialties. And you can do this by way of launching a new product. You can also do this by way of launching a brand extension. A brand extension has to be done to fill a gap identified. A new product will be done to exploit a new product opportunity.
Okay.
Right.
And then just a general question. What generally is, so if one MR can reach to how many doctors? So
the call list for, so the call list is around 180 to 200 doctors.
Okay. So over a year, they'll need to reach out 180 to 200 doctors.
It is a call list. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
They are supposed to do that within a quarter at least once.
Okay.
Not over a year.
Yeah. So multiple visits.
Yeah, there are 11 calls a day multiplied by 26 working days.
Got it. Yeah. And in terms of the specialty reach, so you would have the most reach in GPs, or it's or gastroenterologist, or which would be your kind of the
maximum? It is in tune with how the industry is. Industry gets 48% from GPs. So in our acute divisions, 48% of the number of doctors, 48 to 60% of the doctors would be GPs for acute. But for the subchronic, there are divisions like ophthalm, dental, where they are pure ophthalmologists, pure dentists, right? So it depends on the gynec division would have 60% gynecologists, 40% GPs with gynec practice. So it changes. Yeah.
Got it, ma'am. That's all. That's all from my side. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. A final reminder to the participants, if you wish to ask a question, please use the raise hand function or come in directly and ask the question by introducing yourself and your company name.
If there are no other questions, since it's 11 now, I have another meeting. So
Yeah, me too.
yeah.
I was to say.
Sure,
Vishal,
ma'am.
is it okay?
Sure,
Can we
sir.
stop
Yeah.
off?
Yeah, ma'am. So we'll conclude the call here. Thank you very much, Aditi ma'am, Sandeep sir, and Vilas sir, for taking time out. Thank you everyone for participating. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye.
Thank you.